Hey everybody, how's it going? Sorry it's been a while, but I promise I'm going to start posting more often here. This video is related to this character that I finished a little bit ago. I'm going to talk about my workflow with her. A lot has to do with Unreal Engine, so whether you're a character artist or just like Unreal Engine and Metahumans, stay all the way because there a lot of things that you can learn from this one. Now, before we get started, I just want to clarify a couple of things. Now I have two channels. This is the MR3D tutorial channels, and there's my other channel, which is just MR3D Dev. This channel is going to remain tutorials only, so I'm going to be posting my workflow, whether I do short films, characters, or any art-related stuff. I'll be posting my workflow here. The other channel is more of my opinion channel about video games and the gaming industry as a whole. I also do dissect the videos. I call those videos where I look at game assets, like literally we look at 3D models in Blender, look at the geometry, look at the texture. So if you're interested in that, you can go subscribe to that channel. If you just want the tutorials, just stay in this channel. There's some people that I know came from the other channel because I was posting tutorials there as well, but I find out that that's a whole different audience in this channel. So, all right, so here she is post, and let's get a couple things out of the way. The groom, this is in the free ponytail that you can find. This is not the one that comes as a preset with the Metahuman creator. But is one of the free grooms that was provided by Epic. Initially, I was actually modeling her to use a stylized hair, which you'll see later on in the high poly version. But when I added this groom during testing, I thought she looked amazing. So I just kept going with it. And I do like the mix in between, like kind of like realistic-ish versus like the stylized and highly saturated the rest of her suit and armor. Now, the other thing about her is that she is a metahuman in rig and in topology and in UV maps, if you want to call it that. So we'll talk about that in a second, but she is what I would call a fully custom metahuman. The thing that I did make from scratch is my topology and everything is the armor. So one of the objectives with these characters, aside from me having many years not having made a character from scratch, so I wanted to pick up my tools and practice a little bit and all that. That was one of the purpose with this character. The other purpose was to create a full character where I can add some armor without having the hassle of rigging. In fact, you can see that if I use control rig, let's move a little bit here. And if I move her, you can see that the armor moves with her and there are no problems in there. There's a lot of detail baked into her, but moreover, like shoes, knee armors, the holster, everything. That's what we're going to talk about later in this video. So that is one of the purposes that I had to keep to the metahuman topology. And as you can see, I added her with the third person character and everything. This is the Niagara example. I like it because it already comes built in, so you can just like do this third person running, jumping, and she's carrying that rifle. So the purpose of that is that you can see that she works as a character. Every part of her rig functions very well. The shooting is not functioning that well, and I maybe have to reposition the weapon a little bit, but she can function as a playable in-game character. Okay, so just to show you how everything started, I have a base mesh here, which is the one in blue. The wireframe is a metahuman from Unreal Engine 5.7. I have a video on how I got this mesh out in the channel. I'll leave some links in the description down below. But you can see this is the base mesh that I was using. So what I did, I wrapped the metahuman mesh around my base mesh, and then I started sculpting from there, took it to ZBrush, added all the detail. One of the reasons why I'm doing this, and I'm doing this with the complete metahuman, not with the metahuman that's separated with head and body, is so I can use a plugin in Maya called Extra Tools, which pretty much takes that new wrap that you did. So pretty much this character right here, wrap with the metahuman geometry, and it will take them as a DNA, so you can generate it as a metahuman inside Unreal Engine. It will be much easier to get the rigging later. All right, here we have the final high poly in ZBrush. There's a couple of things on her that didn't make it to the end. I wasn't very happy with the gauntlets and the shoulder pads and the hair. So that's just something I did for the meantime. But as you can see, this is the high poly from that same sculpt that I show you in the beginning from the base mesh. Everything is sculpted. One of the things that I do is I wrap the mesh, the metahuman mesh once, so I get the nice topology and everything. Run it through the extra tools, and that's why she is in a different position. You saw her that here she is, you know, she has her legs very wide, and in here she's actually more in that metahuman pose, is because that extra tools feature can turn the DNA from the metahumans, what you get into from Metahuman Creator, into an OBJ. So pretty much it gets her into the metahuman pose, so it's easier and faster to put her through the whole Metahuman Creator process once everything is done. Usually once I'm done with her, what I would do is I would wrap again just to be sure that I have the nice topology, and then I would bake. Now when it comes to the armor, they're separated pieces, nothing too big. I just retopologized them and unwrap them in Maya, and I was done with that. When it comes to the body, I kept the UVs from the metahuman. It wasn't ideal, and this is one of the, let's say, the downsides of doing it this way, is because if you mess with the unwrapping from the metahuman, that you can no longer use this workflow where the metahuman creator rigs a character for you, pretty much. So you have to stick with their unwrapping, and sometimes the bake lines are not correctly, because since it wraps around a mesh that is a little bit further away from the usual proportions of the metahuman, some things can get distorted. However, that's an easy fix on a program like Photoshop, which is what I did for her. So maybe it's just a little bit more work, but I think it compensates a lot in the end for you not having to rig the whole character. Now, when it comes to my workflow for textures, I'm using the yield values method from Photoshop. So just using a gradient map. I've been using this I learned how to do this and I love it. It's so easy and it gets you great starting results. So as you can see, with the big maps, you create the values and then just add a gradient map on top. And that is it. You take it into Substance Painter to get all the PBR goodness. If you browse through my really old videos from like around 2019, I was showing how to do characters and nobody was watching. So, but there was a detailed breakdown on how I used to do these things. Then I would just take it into Substance Painter. And this is where the difficulties of doing things with the metahuman can come. So this is the main body and head, and you're wondering where is the armor? Well, the armor had to be in a different file because I am using the metahuman and I cannot disturb the UVs. The UVs for a metahuman come in a UDIM tile. So when you have a UDIM tile, you cannot have meshes that are not UDIM tiled. Like, at least I don't know how to do it. It would give me an error and it would not let me go through. So if anybody in the comments knows how to get a UDIM and a non-UDIM mesh into the same file, let me know, because I'll be really curious. I haven't been able to find how to do that anywhere. So I just thought that it can be done. What I did is I textured this here. So as you can see, this is the face. There's some little bits that I need to fix for the eyelids, but this is the face that I got from Photoshop. So let's go back to 3D and let me show you how the face looks without all the PBR extras that I added here. So when it comes to the face, it's basic stuff. So let me turn off all of these. So this is how it looks from what I brought from Photoshop. And if we hit the color map, you can see it. In the color map, it looks okay, very close to hand painted. By the way, if you see, I'd say 99% of the characters that I made are made this way. I've made realistic characters before, but that's not what I like to do for personal projects. For personal projects, I love doing stylized art. So I try to apply a hand painted approach on top of PBR, or maybe the other way. It's hand painted approach with PBR on top, because as you can see, without light, you can still see everything about the model. You can still see a little bit of shading, and the volume, you can determine all the volume from all the pieces on her suit just from the color face. So this is one of the things that I like to do whenever I'm making characters. So this is what I brought from Photoshop, and in here it looks okay-ish, but she looks very dead, and I didn't turn off the lip gloss. So this is because you have to apply makeup to your characters, whether you're into makeup or not. You just have to. It's part of the job. So this is how she looks without anything on her face. Then what I did, I added a skin face. Again, this is something that I've been doing since a while. You just grab the skin face. It really helps speeding up the workflow when you're creating skin specifically for the face, not the whole body. For the whole body, I would probably use a different workflow, but for the, if it's just the face, this skin face works really fine. I just did small tweaks. For instance, the base skin, I removed the color and kept the color that I brought from Photoshop. And I just added the other things you're not seeing because this is for PBR's sake. This is not so much for color. So if I go back to the material stage, you can see that things start taking shape as I am turning on. I'm not gonna go into these because I didn't make any changes to these. So this is as they come, and you can see how much they add to the face. I also added a couple things here, like this layer to make her not too orange, because this AO, I could have reduced the amount a little bit, but I usually add a screen layer on top just to make it a little bit lighter. And then I do the usual, if you painted skin before, whether you paint realistic or stylized, the usual red, yellow, and blue layers that you have to add in order to give it some more volume and to make the shading more attractive. Then it's just a matter of little extra bits here and there. I added some freckles, a little bit more ambient occlusion mixed with the dirt generator. And then this is just, I just painted the scalp on top, just where her hair is going to go. This fill layer right here is just her eyebrows. And then you got the lip gloss, which, you know, very self-explanatory. All the lip gloss has is one layer with the color, one layer with the roughness. The roughness has a little bit of a texture to it, so it's not just a flat color. And you can see from the facial, the face skin that I showed you before, that can be found, that comes with Substance Painter. It adds the pore here. I'm going to do another character where I actually add the pores myself. I have a couple of face kits to add the pores, but for a quick character, and again, this character wasn't anything too specific. It was just something for me to practice. It just ended up looking real nice, and I added her to portfolio. But you can see the skin, pores, and all around. The freckles look really good. The freckles were done with the dot erased brush. That's pretty good for doing that. That was the face. Now the suit is more complicated. I would have liked to do the suit in Photoshop the same way that I did the face, but since this character is being done with the UDIM, and I personally don't know how to handle UDIM tiles in Photoshop. I know how to handle them here, but not in Photoshop, so I wasn't able to do the workflow that I did for the face. So what I did is I constructed everything in Substance Painter. Because yes, you can do, like, you can skip the Photoshop step and just do everything here in Substance Painter. I just find that doing it in Photoshop is just so much easier and so much faster. All right, now for the suit, one color as a block. Then I turned down the roughness, and I probably would have deleted this layer because I have a bunch of roughness on top, but I just left it there just for testing purposes. And then I added all my other colors on top. We have the color, let's turn the color A first. So initially this color had some variations to it. You can see that if you get close, you see this little brush strokes, and this has to do a lot with kind of these layers that I like to add. I think it's pretty fun to just add whatever grunge into a mask and then add a blur slope. So if I turn this up, you can see this is just a grunge layer, but if I add the blur slope, then the slope, then it turns into kind of this camo stain-ish. I don't know, it's just this kind of brush strokes. I really like how it looks. And then I just adjusted the levels a little bit, and that's how I got this kind of workflow. I do have another layer that it's part of this one, which is all the way over here, which is a multiply layer, just to give it a little bit more contrast. Like right now the textures look pretty light, but once you take them into Unreal, they tend to look a little bit darker. So I try to stay within a little bit more of a light shade of color. Now, if we go to the second color, the color B, you can see in this one, it's a little bit different. I added a gradient. So initially I was experimented with the rubber layer, and I had all kinds of colors. I just left them there because if I want to go back. But then I settled into doing this gradient map, kind of like Sombra. If you've seen Sombra from Overwatch, I think it's pretty cool, that gradient that they use. And you can see here, it's just a 3D linear gradient that you can pick from the generators. Give it one color, and then the color on top is just the opposite mask of it, and it gives you this pattern. I also have another color here. I do like this one too. I just thought it was too bright for what I was trying to do with this character, but I kept it there because I think it looks cool. I added yet another layer for AO. Again, just because I was in the color, the unlit mode, and if I turn off the AO, it's really flat, so I like to give it a little bit more volume by using just the ambient occlusion as maps, as a mask, and then invert it, and then just adding a little bit of blur. Then we have some roughness variations that I added here. If we go back to the maps, what this does is it kind of adds the shininess in a pattern, because I do like that to kind of break up the texture so it's not a one uniform thing. If we go to roughness and I toggle this, you can see how much it breaks the texture a little bit, so it's not one flat thing. Now, I did want to add another color to her, so I went into the color C folder where we have a little bit of a darker shade here, and we have something very cool, something that I've seen just by doing my dissected videos. I've learned so much from seeing how actual game assets are made, like from AAA to indie and all that. You can see that this is something that I picked up in one of the characters from Overwatch, is something that you see every now and then where there's a pattern that you only see as roughness. It's actually not there in the diffuse. It's something that's just part of the roughness. And I think it gives this a little bit more character, if you will. Now, there was a couple of things that I missed when I was sculpting this character, kind of like separation in this part of the arm. So that's why I have a height layer here. That's one of the things that I love of Substance Painter. You don't have to sculpt all your details. You can just add them as height. So I have another height layer that goes all the way around, just defining these areas. And then I just added another ambient occlusion layer on top of everything, just to darken things up a bit and finish kind of like the volume over here that you can see the difference. It's pretty clear. I do like how she looks with that extra AO on her. There's this, I added this little bit of yellow for variation, just as a linear gradient. I don't think I used it in the end. I think it's turned off in the final iteration of this character. Then we have the trims, because this stylized workflow always have some sort of trim. So if I turn it on, you can see there's a huge difference between adding this with and without the trims. You can see that her armor instantly looks a little bit more 3D just by, and everything is baked maps, but just by adding a trim and of course a little bit more color to those trims, it makes a lot of difference. And the trim does have different layers, so it's not just, you know, one color and call it a day. I do add a little bit of like an highlight that I painted over. I hand painted that over. If we go to the color, you can see it here as well. If I turn it off, it removes that 3D aspect that this has. So again, one of the other things that I like that I picked up from that Overwatch style, which is my favorite, to differentiate a little bit of the material that this character has for the suit. So not everything is the same. And I think this dot, especially because it's a skin tight suit, it adds a little bit, it makes it a little bit more interesting. I didn't have a concept for this, by the way. I was just following my muse, and yeah, you should have a concept all the time. It's just for this one, I wasn't going for anything in particular. I was just like doing shapes that I like to do. Well, finally, there are some like these little clamps right here that you can see if I turn them on. They're actually, I hand painted a little bit of the highlights under. They're baked on the character. I think they look really nice. And again, one of those things that if you go into this layer, you can actually see them. If you go into the color layer, you can actually see them as opposed to just, you know, adding whatever color. That's one of the things that I like to do in Substance Painter, and why Stylized is my favorite art style. All right, now this video is already quite long, so I'm going to skip the armor texture for now. If you'd like to see that, please leave it in the comment sections down below. If I see that there's interest in that, we'll do another video just for the armor. And just so you know, the weapon, I didn't model the weapon. It's just an asset that I bought. I did texture it myself, so we can look at the texturing of that asset too. Just leave me a comment down below. But the other thing that I wanted to show, because when I showcased this in social media, people were saying, well, you're using the Metahuman just because it makes things easier, which of course, that's one of the reasons. It's more convenient. If I was working inside a indie development team where you don't have specialists, I think the Metahuman workflow is a big help for me as an artist, because I am not a tech artist. I don't consider myself, I know how to weight paint, I know how to rig, but I don't consider myself fantastic at that part of the job. So having the Metahumans does help a lot, especially because they already have control rig, they already have facial expressions baked in, and you can create a character that is easy to handle and easy to quote unquote rig, because all I did was attach these pieces to the corresponding bones within a blueprint. And that's why I can animate her and move her around. Things are not actually rigged, like the armor isn't rigged, it's just attached to her. I will do another character where I do a little bit more of the rigging, and probably will have some clothing made with Chaos Cloud, which is a feature that I think it's awesome from Unreal Engine. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I picked the Metahuman workflow, because it makes things so much more convenient, especially. So you can see everything is here, even the weapon, and you can see the hierarchy here. Everything, all the parts of the armor are under her body. And over here, you can see the parent socket for it. Like, all right, everybody, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for listening to me all the way to this point. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button, because it really helps the channel grow. I know I haven't been posting, but I'm going to start posting more workflow videos to this channel. Let me know what you want to see in terms of characters. I know some indie devs like to use iClone a lot. I personally am not a real illusion guy. I would rather use Metahumans. Do you rather use Metahumans or iClone? Let me know in the comment sections down below. Subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you in the next one.